Hey, Garden Fam, I hope you are doing well. It is your host, Raven Epiphany, and I am back with another quick video. Today, we're talking about using your imagination and not, being restricted to where you are. I've talked a lot about leaving the rat race, getting off the hamster wheel, etc. And I think one of the biggest enemies to that is thinking that you are stuck within the constructs that already exist in the world, thinking that, the only way to make money is in a job, or the only way to, live a good life is if I grind and work hard. The only way to be valuable is if, I expend a, amount of physical energy, etc. And so using your imagination helps you to get outside of that space. Now, one thing I know, is that oftentimes we are taught that, there's a right and wrong answer for everything. And so that kind of limits us from being able to think outside of that. Now, granted, there are rights and wrongs in the world. Don't get me wrong. I'm not even, here to pretend that they are not. But sometimes we're looking for a yes or no, a right or wrong, an up or down, when really, there's gray space in there. There's not like a just automatic answer to it. And I will say thank you to my parents, because there have been plenty of times when I'm like, can you just give me the answer? Like, I would call them and ask them life questions, and then they would be like, what do you want to do? Or like asking me, follow-up questions. And I'd be like, Dad, Mom, can you just tell me like what's the right answer? And even with God, sometimes, there are certain things where with God it's just a straight up right or wrong answer. But with certain things, it's kind of like, hey, I have empowered you. I have made you, who you need to be. And so he guides you through this process of coming to a good answer, a good way forward for you. And this is not one of those my truth, your truth, whatever truth type things. I don't believe in that. But I do believe that there, is a co-creation process that we are able to do with God in our lives. But we can't do that when we are restricted to looking at the constructs that exist, when we are restricted to, thinking that how everyone else has done things, how everyone else is doing things, how we grew up thinking things are supposed to be done, is the only way that it can go. And so I challenge you, as I've challenged some friends and even challenged myself, to begin to implement thinking time in your day. Now, like I said in my detox video, when I talked about stepping away from social media for the sake of your identity, it may be uncomfortable at first. Just like when people talk about meditation and different things like that, that can be uncomfortable at first when you're used to stimulation all the time, when you're used to, having other people think for you, when you're used to living in the constructs that have been handed to you. It can be uncomfortable to challenge yourself to use your imagination again, something that was so innate and so easy and freely flowing to us when we were children. It can be uncomfortable to tap back into that space as a child, especially if unfortunately you went through some traumatic things as a child. But I still encourage you to go back to that space and to really, open up your mind, open up your heart to that same type of thinking that you did when you were a kid, like where literally anything was possible. That's why when you see little kids, you can give them a toy, but then there'll be some cardboard boxes over there. And why do the kids want to play with a cardboard box? Because they have an imagination. They see that cardboard box as anything they want it to be in the moment. That it can be, a spaceship if they want it to be. It can be a stove if they want to cook. It can be anything, literally, like, that they make up in the moment. And that's the imaginative nature of children. Jesus tells us that we ought to come to him as little children, and that means a lot of things, the innocence of them. But one of the big things is their like open-mindedness and their imagination, their ability to just freely go to spaces in their minds that aren't necessarily presented before them. And actually, that's a major key of faith. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, right? And so when we walk by faith and not by sight, we're not walking based on what we literally physically see in front of us. We're walking by faith. We're walking low-key by imagination, whether it be the imagination that we came up with, by the power of God, or whether it be, the imagining of God's words that he's already spoken being true, even though we don't see that in front of us as of yet. And so, long story long, I encourage you to, give yourself space in your life to imagine, and think outside of the space that you're in. And this is a gradual process. It may be a small thing at first, and then, it snowballs into a bigger thing. It may start in one area of your life first, and then you're able to implement it in different areas. For example, Y'all know I'm a foodie. So, I often look at menus at restaurants and I start thinking, okay, I like this, but like what other things can I add or take away based off of, what my palate is calling for right now. That's, a small scale imagination, right? It may even get bigger into how you envision your life going and how you envision you being able to carry out the purpose that God has given you. Even when God gives us a purpose, there's often flexibility in how he allows us to carry it out. That's why he's given us, creative minds. We co-create with him. And so it is in that space of thinking outside of the box that we are able to see past what our family has done, see past what everyone in our community is doing, see past what the scope of our industry is, and see into what we desire. And what we desire right now may not be the same as what we desire when we give ourselves the space and the time to imagine bigger than that. And I also say, when you are doing this type of imagination, do it a little bit privately first. Spend a good amount of time doing it privately. And I say that because if your imagination and your faith space is in its infancy stages, it can be easy to then speak to someone who is still, living life by certain constructs, and they kind of cause you to doubt what you just sat there and imagined with the Lord, what you just sat there and in your head co-created with God, right? And so guard that space of imagination until you are pretty firm on, that this is, how you're living life, that you are cool on, walking by faith, etc. Kind of guard that space, because not everyone is necessarily equipped in the same ways to think in that way as of yet. Hopefully everyone, will get there, but not everyone is. I remember having certain conversations about things I wanted to do in business and how I wanted to conduct my business. And, there was, I could just see we weren't speaking the same language. And in that, it just made me say, okay, I just need to step away and like give myself space to imagine what I want it to look like, because I know this thing that I want to do. I don't quite know how to do it. I'm asking someone else to help me how to do it, and they're not speaking the same language. So I just need to spend the time and imagine, how can I get this thing done? How can I get to that end goal? And sometimes that's just what you have to do in life. Once you've imagined and you see the end picture, you may, then begin to consult with other people and see if they're able to help you. And if you see that, the steps that they're giving you are not aligning with the vision, or you see that, they're basically trying to say, hey, your vision's not even realistic. It's not possible. They're basically saying that thing that God gave you is not realistic. It's not possible. Then that's another time for you to step away and again, give yourself space to imagine, to co-create with God, and then go forth with the plan and the strategy that he gives you from that space. And so, long story long, give yourself space to be like a child and to think as if there's no limits, because realistically speaking, there are no limits, So I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon, God willing. Please like, subscribe, and share with your tribe, and I will see you guys soon. Love you bunches. Oh yeah, I did want to add one more thing. A big part that would be helpful to this is to give yourself different experiences as well. Expose yourself to differences, like, travel, go to museums, read books. I have worked in many different jobs, many different positions, over the course of my career. And then since I've been doing freelance work, I've had, the opportunity to work with different business owners and see how they do things, and even, hear some of their thoughts. And it opens up the realm of possibility for you. Things that even when you are beginning to imagine that you didn't even know were possible to imagine, you are then exposed to those things, and they can be in your scope of things to be the starting point of your imagination. They don't have to be the end point, but they can be the starting point of, oh wow, I didn't even know that was possible. Like, for example, again, I'm gonna go back to food as an example, because it's just on brand, right? The first time I discovered that you can put a fried egg on a burger, listen, life change, mind blown. That's something I never would have thought of on my own, but it opened up the realm of possibility. And from there, there are different other ingredients that I have began to think of putting on my burgers, now veggie burgers, but either way, began putting on my burgers, just because I realized, like, oh wow, like you can put something other than lettuce and tomato on a burger, and at that you can put a runny egg on there. Listen, life changing. And so give yourself experiences to open up your mind to different possibilities, and don't end there. Don't let even those possibilities that you open up your mind to be the limit. let those be the ones that kind of expand the territory of your mind so that you can continue to imagine even further than that. So that's it. Talk to y'all soon.